Trance has come back, but it's changed a lot over the years. For one, the modern style is a lot more simple and more techno. Like, as you can hear, there's a lot more one-note bass lines. A lot more techno. It's almost like I was thinking it's almost a bit more psytrance and trance kind of fusing into one thing rather than kind of having them be so separate, right? So that's one of the big things with modern trance. I think it's that it's also a bit faster, right? We're at like, again, bringing that techno thing kind of 138 BPM up to like even like 160, 165. Some people are really pushing. Even when there are a lot of melodies in these kinds of tracks, you know, they're more relegated to the background. It's really more like you'll have your kick and bass line kind of pumping, and then you have all these little sounds over top of it, like these little effects. Right, all these kinds of things, and then maybe a melody can fit into that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that, right? And there are a lot more melodic tracks, right, from people like maybe MRD, Narcissus, DJ Heartstring, but you notice a lot of those kind of tracks still have the same similar sort of drums and bass kind of groove, even if the bass line is doing multiple notes. So that's kind of the first thing that I've noticed as far as just how trance has evolved in this modern way that it's come back. I think the next thing here is, you know, bringing back the simple drum machine sounds. If you check this out, it's a lot of 909 and 808 sounds. Right on top, we got this huge 909 kick. Right, it's a lot of these are sounds from the 90s even that I've heard people use, either sampling from tracks or just bringing back, you know, old sample libraries and stuff like that. And you can hear it creates a different groove because this stuff is a lot cleaner. So when you're listening at home, it's not so like intense. Like a lot of those, you know, older, or let's say like maybe late 2000s to like 2010s trance that kind of fell out of style. It was very like clean, you know, high frequency focused sounds, very like in your face, OTT, you know, multi-band kind of sounds, right? And it was just a lot to listen to. These sounds, like just the classic drum machine stuff and like that clean bass line, you can listen to a lot of it and it doesn't really like hit you as hard. So I think that's another thing there. Plus it's clean at home and it's not as aggressive. Then when you turn this way up on a club system, it's gonna just like go in there. And it can layer well with other tracks too for a DJ. So those classic 909 and 808 sounds are really big for that. There's even a bit of breakbeats. You know, you can hear like if we take the drums without that, it's just very like steady, kind of flat, simple. And then you can bring in that high-pass breakbeat like that, and it's a lot more warm and a lot more just ravey sounding. So there's like that rave kind of psy influence in there. Again, like I was saying, I think another way that these trance tracks are quite different would just be like the way vocals are being used. If you listen, it's almost more of this like kind of modern techno. I don't want to call it techno because I know techno a lot of times isn't supposed to have a lot of vocals, but kind of like this way that I guess you would call it more like TikTok techno, right? But kind of like what's come up in the past few years where maybe the vocals are a little bit more of just like a loop, EDM sort of influenced, catchy thing. Like I call it like post EDM, you know? Where it's not just this, but then these vocals come in. Right, and there's a lot of groove in the vocals, especially if you listen to it against, like, yeah, the drums. The way that the eighth notes move against the drums really adds a lot to it. Again, if we just play this on its own, it's kind of one-dimensional. So when you are doing these kind of tracks, you definitely want some kind of a vocal sample. And I think it's not just like bringing in that TikTok techno sort of thing. It's also like, you know, influenced by like funk music as well, right? And like a lot of stuff, even like in hip hop, where people are just taking a lot of vocal samples and kind of speeding them up right now. Like it's a very current thing. So this is definitely bled over into trance. And then I think the last thing when it comes to these modern tracks is way less reliance on like, you know, big build-ups and having all these like huge stacked effects, right? Like the old trance was definitely getting very, very intense with like, you would have to have like 10 different build sweeps going at once, and then it has to have this huge when the actual drop came, right? And these tracks are a lot more simple. You know, a lot of times the build-up is just something like this. You know, really simple. It's actually like kind of a process of like reducing things rather than adding things, you know. But really, I mean, a lot of times if there is even anything, it's really just as simple as something like this, you know, maybe just a 909 snare. I'm going to grab one out of here. This is my modern trance toolkit. Let's use that one, and you would just have like very simple, just 16 notes, you know. It's really trying to bring it back to that more classic, simple sort of feel that doesn't necessarily get in the way of the track, but just adds to it. So you'd have something like that, and then literally just like a crash, you know, like this 909 crash, maybe doing something like this, just like on the build up, hitting like maybe once every bar, and then sort of speeding up. Yeah, exactly like this. And then maybe something like that, speed up again, and then here we go. There we'll do quarter notes, and then there we go. That's literally the build up. Maybe you could take that last crash and make it a little louder with the velocity too. That's a trick. But see, it's just because it's working on the basis of the groove. The whole track is produced properly. It's really full, so you don't need all this stuff, right? It's not trying to fill up all this extra space that's there. There's plenty of, like, it's already filled up. You know, you're good. You just need a little bit of stuff to kind of guide it. But these tracks rely a lot less on build-up effects and stuff. And I think it's going to be a bit more timeless, and it's less corny than if you just have this big throughout your whole track, right? So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Like I said, that is the difference between modern trance and old trance. To show you all this stuff, I've used this template and a bunch of samples from our modern trance toolkit. You can grab that at the top of the description on my website. It's this huge library. You can see right here we got a bunch of Ableton presets. We got a bunch of Ableton templates. I used this one right here. We got some breakbeats, rave loops, serum, even some synth loops and stuff with MIDI. So it's everything you need. Links at the top of the description. Thanks for the support, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.